This is for 12th class biology, chapter 10, microbes in human welfare, lecture number 3. Topics to be discussed in today's lecture are microbes in the production of biogas, microbes as biocontrol agents, and microbes as biofertilizers. So let's start with how microbes help in production of biogas. So first you need to know what is biogas. So biogas is a mixture of gases. Mainly in this mixture methane is present, that is CH4, and some other gases are also present with methane. And this mixture of gases is produced by microbes such as methanogens. So these methanogens are anaerobic bacteria, means these grow anaerobically on cellulosic material like organic matter, okay, like on debris, and produce methane, means by growing on cellulosic material and by doing anaerobic respiration, these methanogen produce methane along with carbon dioxide and hydrogen. So this complete mixture of gases, that is CH4, CO2 and H2, it is called biogas, that is produced by methanogens. And this one example of methanogens is given here, that is methanobacterium. So many such bacteria come under methanogens. Methanobacterium is one example. Methanobacterium is found in anaerobic sludge and rumen of cattle. Okay, so you know, in sewage treatment also we talked about it, that methanogens are present. Methanogens are helping in the digestion of activated sludge, right? So we can say methanobacterium is found in anaerobic sludge, and second thing, it is also found in rumen of cattle. Why it is present in rumen of cattle? For cellulose digestion, okay, because cellulose is present there in rumen of cattle. So for the cellulose digestion also this methanobacterium is present there in anaerobic conditions, right? Now biogas is used for cooking and lighting. Okay, so these are uses of biogas. Cattle dung, that is called gobar, contains these bacteria, right, because it is present in rumen of cattle. So this methanogen, this methanobacterium will be present in cattle dung also, right? From the rumen it can come in cattle dung also, right? So it is present in cattle dung. So dung is used to produce biogas or gobar gas, we can say, right? So here you can see this biogas plant in which the people are adding cow dung, because in cow dung methanobacterium are present which help in production of biogas, right? These are methanobacterium. This is diagram of biogas plant and how biogas is produced inside it. So there are different parts. First is concrete tank. So first of all, a concrete tank is prepared like this, which is 10 to 15 feet deep. Usually it is 10 to 15 feet deep, to collect bio waste and slurry of dung. Slurry of dung means dung plus water. Okay, so that mixture is prepared here, that is called slurry of dung. And along with slurry of dung, other bio wastes can also be used here, like other organic matter, vegetable waste, peels of vegetables. Okay, so these things can also be used here, and it is added here in the concrete tank. So this is the inlet for adding slurry and other bio wastes. Okay, so slurry is added from here and it comes to the digester. So this is digester where methanogens act on it, where methanogens act on slurry, and organic matter present in that is digested, and also the biogas is produced. Biogas means a mixture of gases is produced here due to that digestion of organic matter by methanogens, right? Now a floating cover is placed over the slurry. So here a slurry is present and also methanogens are present in that, where these are acting and are producing biogas. Now over the slurry a floating cover is placed. So this gas holder can also be called a floating cover. It is present here, and when the mixture of gases, that is biogas, is produced here, due to that pressure, due to pressure of that biogas, it keeps on rising. right? So it is a floating cover and it keeps on rising due to the pressure created by biogas, a mixture of methane, carbon dioxide and nitrogen, right? And when biogas is produced here, this is outlet pipe for the removal of biogas, okay, to supply that biogas into the kitchen or for other use, right? So this is called outlet to supply biogas. Then this slurry, which is used here by methanogens for the production of biogas, okay, so that spent slurry means on which methanogens have acted and biogas has been produced, that will be called used slurry, or you can say spent slurry, okay. So that spent slurry will be taken out from here. This is called outlet pipe. So from this outlet pipe, that spent slurry is removed and that spent slurry can be used as fertilizer, right? So outlet pipe to remove the spent slurry, which can be used as fertilizer. So this is complete structure for a biogas plant, and in biogas plant there is production of biogas and also the spent slurry can be used as fertilizer. Now, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, that is also called IARI. So IARI and Khadi and Village Industries Commission, that is called KVIC. So both these institutes have developed technology of biogas production in India, right? So, and this question can be asked that who developed the technology of biogas production in India, or which institute developed the technology of biogas production in India? So you will give the name of these two institutes. Topic is use of microbes as biocontrol agents. So first of all, what is biocontrol? Biocontrol is the use of biological methods for controlling plant diseases and pests. Plant diseases like diseases caused by bacteria, virus, fungi, okay. So use of biological methods to control these plant diseases and other pests. So if we use the biological methods to control these, that will be called biocontrol. For example, ladybird beetle. This is ladybird beetle, okay, and it controls aphids. Aphids are a kind of pest, you can say, on the crops which damage our crops. So these ladybird beetle eat those aphids and protect our crops. So it is a kind of biocontrol, okay, biocontrol method in which ladybird beetle can eat the aphids and can protect our crops. Then dragonfly control mosquitoes, because this is dragonfly and it eats mosquitoes. So mosquitoes can be controlled by dragonfly. Next is chemical pesticides and insecticides. So pesticides, the chemicals used to kill the pests, and insecticides are chemicals used to kill the insects. Okay, so pesticides and insecticides kill both useful and harmful organisms, right? If we use some type of chemical on our crops, due to that what happened? Because you know, all the insects are not harmful for our crop. Okay, all the insects do not damage our crops. But what happened when we use the chemicals to kill the insects? Both the useful and harmful organisms are killed due to those chemicals, right? So we need to save our biodiversity also. We need to save those useful organisms also, right? That's why biocontrol method is a good method to protect our crops from the diseases and pests, okay, without causing any harm to useful organisms, right? And also the chemical pesticides are causing harm to the useful organism, and along with it, it also causes pollution, right? Because these are chemicals and these are causing pollution. Biocontrol method has no such problem. So you can say these are two advantages of biocontrol method. First, we can there will be no pollution due to biocontrol method. Second, there will be no harm to the useful organisms. So let's start. Let's take some examples of biocontrol microbes as biocontrol method. First is Bacillus thuringiensis. That is also called BT. Okay, Bacillus thuringiensis. These bacteria are Bacillus thuringiensis, and this Bacillus thuringiensis is used to control butterfly caterpillar. This is butterfly caterpillar, and it usually damage the cotton crops. Okay, and due to this butterfly caterpillar, crop production of cotton decreases, right? So we need to control it, and to control this butterfly caterpillar, usually Bacillus thuringiensis is used, right? The dried spores of Bacillus, how it works? Dried spores. So it come in the form of dry spores. So dried spores of this bacteria, which are available in form of sachet. Okay, in the form of packets, you can say these are available as a powder form. Okay, so these dried spores, or you can say powder form, are mixed with water and sprayed on to vulnerable plants such as brassicas and fruit trees. Okay, along with saving the cotton plants, it can also save our brassicas and fruit trees. Okay, brassica campestris, like this, you can say mustard plants. Okay, so these plants can also be saved with the use of these dried spores of Bacillus thuringiensis. These are eaten by caterpillar. Now we are saying that we are spraying the dried spores of this bacteria on our trees, on our crops. Then how it works? When these are eaten by caterpillar, this caterpillar of butterfly, when it eats those those plants on which it has been sprayed, in their gut the toxin is released. Okay, that toxin is released inside the gut of caterpillar, and the larva get killed, right? What is the toxin here? Toxin which is present in dried spores of Bacillus thuringiensis. Okay, that is not toxic to us. Okay, that is not toxic to human being, but that works as a toxin for insects. So when this toxin comes in gut of these larvae of caterpillar, these larvae get killed. Scientists have introduced Bacillus thuringiensis toxin genes into plants. So about this you will study in the unit biotechnology, that how the genes for this bacteria have been introduced inside the plant, and we have made genetic plants, genetically modified plants. Okay, and those genetically modified plants, one example is given here, like BT cotton. So BT cotton is a genetically modified cotton in which gene for Bacillus thuringiensis have been introduced. Okay, so about it you will study in unit biotechnology in detail. Okay, for now it is enough that Bacillus thuringiensis is a bacteria that can be used as a biocontrol method. Okay, and it comes in the dry powder form or dried spores form, which are mixed with water and sprayed on the plants, and when these plants are eaten by the insects, toxins are released inside the gut of insect, and those insects got killed. And here you can see this is BT cotton, the genetically modified cotton plant. So about it you will study later. Next example of biocontrol method is Trichoderma species, that is a fungus. Trichoderma is a fungus. As you can see here, these filaments of Trichoderma. Okay, this hyphae of Trichoderma. So these are seen in the root ecosystem. Root ecosystem, because these are found in association with roots of higher plants, right? That association is called mycorrhiza. You know it before. That mycorrhiza is association of fungi with the roots of higher plants. So this Trichoderma fungus is found here in association with roots. So you can say found in root ecosystem, and they control several plant pathogens. So this is a benefit of this fungus for the root of the plant, okay, because it can protect the plant root from any pathogens. So it is acting as a biocontrol method to control the pests. Next biocontrol agent is baculoviruses, and these baculoviruses belong to a genus Nucleopolyhedrovirus, okay, and these are also used to control many insects and many pests which cause harm to our crops. Now these baculoviruses attacks insects and other arthropods. As you know, insect is only a class under the arthropoda, okay. So along with insects, some other arthropods are also controlled by baculoviruses. Now it is suitable for species specific, okay, only some specific species can be controlled with the help of baculoviruses. Narrow spectrum means it damage only a limited range of organisms, okay. It doesn't cause harm to all the insects, it control only a limited range of insects, so that is called narrow spectrum. Broad spectrum means when any any control system, or you can say you can take an example of any chemical, insecticide or pesticide, which is effective against a wide range of organisms, so that is called broad spectrum. But here it is narrow spectrum, means it is effective only against a narrow range of, or only against some of the insects, right. So this is called narrow spectrum insecticidal application. And desirable in IPM. IPM is integrated pest management, in which pests are controlled in an ecosystem based strategy. Ecosystem based strategy means along with the controlling the pest, we also focus to protect our ecosystem, okay. And a combination of techniques is used here to control the pest, like biological control, habitat manipulation can be done. Habitat means habitat of any organism can be changed to control that, okay. So a combination of many techniques is used here, and that combination of many techniques is called integrated pest management. So it is a type of technique which by which we can control the pest without causing any harm to our ecosystem, right. So here IPM program to conserve the beneficial insects. So this IPM pest management can be done with the help of baculoviruses or some other biocontrol agents, okay, which you have studied here in the previous slides also, right. So these are all biocontrol methods to control the pests. Next topic is microbes as biofertilizers. So what are biofertilizers? These are organisms that enrich the nutrient quality of soil, right. To enrich the nutrient quality of soil, we can use some chemicals also, but here living organisms are used for that purpose. So those living organisms that can enrich the nutrient quality of the soil, those are called biofertilizers. For example, bacteria, fungi, cyanobacteria, these are different biofertilizers which can be used to improve the crop yield, okay. Bacteria, fungi, cyanobacteria, all these are biofertilizers. First we are taking an example of a bacteria, that is Rhizobium bacteria, and you must have heard the name of Rhizobium. That is a symbiotic bacteria which is found in symbiotic association of root nodules of leguminous plant, right. It is found in symbiotic association in the root nodules of leguminous plants. And what is its role there? What is the role of Rhizobium bacteria? It fixes atmospheric nitrogen, and you know nitrogen is an important component for different substances in the plant, okay, and it is required for the growth and metabolism of plant. So we can say it is an important nutrient for the plant, right? So this rhizobium bacteria is increasing the nutrient quality of the soil, okay. It by fixing the atmospheric nitrogen, it is giving nutrient to the plant. So we can say it is a biofertilizer, right? Then these are some examples of free living bacteria. Rhizobium is a bacteria which is found in symbiotic association, and then these are example of free living bacteria which are found in soil, okay. Azospirillum and Azobacter, both are free living bacteria which are found freely in soil. So Azospirillum and Azobacter both can enrich the nitrogen content of soil. So here you can see this is Azospirillum, this is Rhizobium, okay, and this Rhizobium is found here in nodules of leguminous plant, root nodules of leguminous plant. These structure you can see here, these are nodules in which these Rhizobium bacteria are present. Next example of a biofertilizer is a fungus. So fungus, when these are found in association with root of plants, that association is called mycorrhiza. So we can say mycorrhiza is a biofertilizer, okay. So symbiotic association of fungi with plants, and which fungi is mainly found in association with plant roots? Glomus fungi, okay. This question can also be asked here, that write the genus of fungi or the name of fungi which is found in association with the roots of plants. So that fungi mainly belong to the genus Glomus, okay. The fungus gets food from the plant, because we are saying these are in symbiotic association. So what the fungus is getting from the plant? Fungus is getting food from the plant, and the fungal symbiont performs the following. Means how that fungi is giving benefit to the root in turn. So it absorbs phosphorus from soil and passes it to the plant, because phosphorus will act as a nutrient for the plant. So we can say it is giving a useful nutrient to the plant, okay, by absorbing it from the soil, because when the fungal hyphae will be present with the roots, surface area will be increased, okay, and more phosphorus can be absorbed from the soil, and that will be very useful for the plant growth and development, right? Next thing, it gives resistance to root-borne pathogens, that we have discussed earlier also, that how it can be it can control the root-borne pathogens, okay, and also it increases the tolerance power of the plant to salinity and drought, okay. Salinity means more salty condition, when more salt is present in the soil, so it provides tolerance power against salinity and drought also. So it is helping the plant. Next is give overall increase in plant growth and development. So how it because it helping in absorption of phosphorus, so obviously it will improve the overall plant growth and development, right? So we can say this mycorrhiza is a biofertilizer. The next example of biofertilizer is cyanobacteria, and you know cyanobacteria is also called blue-green algae, right? Here you can see the diagram for blue-green algae. And these cyanobacteria or blue-green algae are autotrophic microbes, means these can prepare their own food, because the chlorophyll is present, okay, and they can prepare their own food. Also they fix atmospheric nitrogen, because some special cells are heterocyst. I hope you remember, it was in 11th class. So heterocyst, a special nitrogen fixing cell is present in cyanobacteria, right? So that can fix atmospheric nitrogen also, and if it is fixing atmospheric nitrogen, means it is a biofertilizer, right? These are example: Anabaena, Nostoc, Oscillatoria, okay, all these cyanobacteria can fix atmospheric nitrogen. Now in paddy fields, cyanobacteria serve as biofertilizer. So mainly where it is used in paddy fields. It also adds organic matter to the soil and increases its fertility, right? So by two ways it is increasing the fertility of soil. First, it is fixing the atmospheric nitrogen, and second, it is also adding organic matter, because the cyanobacteria will be present there only in that field, and when it dies, so the organic matter will be increased there. So it also add organic matter, we can say, to the soil, and that organic matter will also increase the fertility. So by two ways it is increasing the fertility of soil, by fixing the atmospheric nitrogen and by adding the organic matter to the soil, right? Now your today's homework is NCERT question number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15. All these NCERT questions you need to do today. Now let's discuss the homework solution of previous lecture. Question number 5, 6, 7, 8 were given. So this is answer for question number 5 of NCERT. That microbes play an important role in controlling diseases caused by harmful bacteria, right? So you need to give some examples here and how these microbes can control those diseases. So you need to explain that. So some examples are given here, like microbes are known to produce antibiotics. You know that fungus is responsible for production of antibiotics. So we can say microbes are known to produce antibiotics, which can be which can be used to treat harmful diseases. Which harmful diseases? Examples are given here, like leprosy, diphtheria. These can be controlled with the help of antibiotics. Now the design of antibiotics means how these antibiotics are working, how these work to control different diseases. The design of antibiotics is such that they destroy bacteria. How these destroy bacteria? By weakening their cell walls. So by weakening the cell wall of bacteria, these antibiotics can destroy the bacteria. Okay, this is only one way. There are some other methods also by which these antibiotics can destroy the bacteria, like by inhibiting their protein synthesis, by inhibiting their reproduction. Okay, so by different ways antibiotics can inhibit the growth of bacteria, or we can say they can destroy the bacteria, right? Now one example is given here, like Penicillium notatum. You know, the first antibiotic was discovered from this fungus, Penicillium notatum. Okay, the penicillin antibiotic. So Penicillium notatum, a fungus, produces chemical penicillin. Chemical penicillin is a antibiotic. Okay, so this antibiotic inhibits the growth of bacteria named Staphylococci. So you need to learn this name of bacteria also. Which bacteria is controlled by penicillin? Many other bacteria can also be controlled. So mainly Staphylococci bacteria is controlled. Based on that only it was discovered, right? So it can control this bacteria in the body of human. Next is answer for question number 6 of NCERT. So here you need to give the name of 2 species of fungus that are used in production of antibiotics. So first is Penicillium notatum, which gives us penicillin, right? Second example is given here. The name of fungus is Cephalosporium acrimonium. Okay, Cephalosporium acrimonium. And the antibiotic which is obtained by this fungi is cephalosporin. So cephalosporin, penicillin. These 2 antibiotics name you can learn from here. Next is question number 7 of NCERT, and the question is, what is sewage? In which way can sewage be harmful to us? So the terms, this is the answer. The term sewage refers to municipal waste material which is carried in drains and sewers, okay, along with water. You can see all that waste along with water is called sewage, right? Sewage include both solid and liquid waste because it is present in water. So both solid and liquid waste are part of sewage, and it is rich in microbes. That sewage, because so much organic matter is present in the sewage, so we can say it is rich in microbes and organic matter. right? Both things are present here in sewage. How it is harmful to us? Most of these microbes, because microbes and organic matters are present in sewage, so most of these microbes which are present in sewage are pathogenic, means they are capable of causing diseases such as waterborne diseases, right? So most of the microbes which are present in sewage are harmful to us. Those are pathogenic. Those microbes can cause different disease in human being, right? This sewage water is one of the major cause to contaminate drinking water. Okay, because when it get mixed with drinking water, so it contaminate that drinking water. All those microbes, those harmful bacteria can come to our drinking water, and when such contaminated water is used by human being, those bacteria can enter in our body and can cause a disease, right? So therefore, it is vital to treat sewage water by collecting and disposing it, right? So these are harmful effects of sewage. This is answer for question number 8 of NCERT, and the question is, what is difference between primary sewage treatment and secondary sewage treatment? So these are the differences. First is, primary sewage treatment is the mechanical or physical removal of small and large substances from sewage. Okay, so we can say this is a physical process. But secondary sewage treatment includes the removal of organic matter by microbes. So living organisms or the microbes are used here to remove the organic matter. Second difference is, the process involves sedimentation and filtration. Okay, in primary sewage treatment, you know, sedimentation and filtration is done to remove the large and small substances. But here in the secondary sewage treatment, process used is biological digestion of waste. So here organic matter is digested with the help of microbes. So we can say that is biological digestion of waste, right? Next is, primary sewage treatment is less complicated because simple filtration and sedimentation is done here. So it is less complicated and relatively low priced method of treatment. But secondary sewage treatment is complicated because here flocks are made. Okay, a mesh of bacteria and fungi are made here, inoculum is added here, agitation is required here. So it is a complicated process, and it is expensive also, because we need agitators for the continuous agitation of the mixture, for the agitation of primary effluent, you can say. So it is a complicated and expensive process.